All right, Nirali, I don't have control of the slides. So we'll skip the agenda slide for a minute and come back to that. And my camera keeps deciding it wants to turn itself off, so I'll be back when it allows me. We have some more people coming in, but I wanted to just kick us off and, excuse me, welcome everyone. I know it's a super big group for the first part of our meeting today. We have all of our APPs, we have some physicians and care management team. So welcome everyone. And then we also have our Pulse for Pulse team that's with us, their support team, as well as Dr. Antonopoulos, who's a cardiologist with their group that is going to support Dr. Phil Tangalos. But I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Phil Tangalos at first, and he is going to share his experience thus far as the unofficial physician champion of Pulse for Pulse, and in partnership with Dr. Rod and Dr. Sanchez. They've been working together on all of this. So Dr. Tangalos, the floor is yours.
Very good. Thanks for having me tonight with your meeting here tonight, folks. Okay, so I don't know what the general understanding is from the APPs on Pulse for Pulse. Has anyone talked to you about it? Have your docs talked to you about it? Do you have no idea what it is? Like what's the general consensus? Anybody? I'll take
Sorry,
that as a.
I'm chewing. I've learned nothing.
Okay. All right.
So I'm driving, but Dr. Guerra and Dr. Patel has told us about us, and we have the red folders to review.
Okay. All right. So you got a little bit, but maybe not much. So I think I've run the most tests out of anyone so far, and I've kind of fumbled through it, to be honest. It's hard to number one, understand what you're testing for. Number two, understand the applicability, the patient responsibility, and then what to do with the results. So I think the pitch to the patient is important too. I've started to talk of it in a way as, hey, we have really good ways of looking at your big vessels, right? We can do cardiac CTs, we can do calcium scoring, we can do stress tests and echoes for structurability of the heart, but we don't really have a great way until now of looking at your small vessels or that tiny, group of capillaries and arterioles and all that kind of stuff. And this test allows me to do it. The type of patient that's eligible, I'm going to share my screen for a second here. Bear with me because I'm kind of a boomer when it comes to technology. All right. I think I got it up. So this is the risk assessment form that patients can fill out. It's very wide sweeping. I mean, you could pretty much circle almost any patient that is going to circle at least one yes to catch them. While that's a good way of getting them in, I don't know that I'm going to screen every single patient who has one yes on this. Particularly the type of patient that I'm looking for is someone who is younger and healthier, but maybe has some high cholesterol or has a family history of cardiac disease. The classic one is, I'm healthy. My dad was healthy till he was 55, never smoked, and then he dropped out of a heart attack. We don't know why. That's the kind of patient that I'm trying to catch with this. So this is the risk assessment that you can have done on your patients, and the workflow can be figured out, right? We have a working workflow here at Washington that's kind of changing day by day depending on what works. So that's the risk assessment form. What is the testing? It's a 3-part test. I tell them it's about 15 to 20 minutes total. If you're coming for an appointment for it, you're usually in and out the door in about a half an hour. It consists of 3 modes: autonomic nervous system testing, which monitors your heart rate variability, looking at your nervous system health. It does ankle brachial indexes, which is checking for circulation in the arms and legs, looking for peripheral vascular disease, and then pseudomotor testing, which is these glass plates with almost like a TENS unit running through it that you put your hands and your feet on that stimulate your sweat glands to look for early signs of neuropathy or vascular disease, right? So that's kind of how I pitch it to them. We also, I'm going to come off of the sharing. We also get a sheet with, I think you guys will get this as well each morning. And I blocked out the patient names, but basically it gives you your list of your patients, their insurance, and then what their estimated out of pocket would be. Now, some of these are deductibles, so they're like, $500, $600, $700. That's not how much the test costs, but that's what their deductible still has. So it gives you an idea what it would cost them going into it too. Not that that is a sole determinant, and it shouldn't be, but it's good to know what the patient's responsibility is going to be. And you know that going in. So if I find a patient who I think would benefit from it, obviously that's kind of the way that I approached it. For the most part, I've had pretty good results. Our patients really trust us implicitly in our practice, which is awesome. So I think it's our responsibility to choose the right patients to test. And obviously go over the results and utilize those results. So let's share once more. So once you get the test done.
Bill, I was under the impression, sorry to cut you off, that Pulse for Pulse was going to vet these people, see if they had a deductible and really see.
That's what the sheet was. It tells you what their responsibility is. If they still have a deductible, they're going to be responsible for the majority of the test. If they have a copay, it'll tell you they have a copay.
When they first came to us, and maybe later on the other doc can speak of this, I thought they were not going to go after or charge them for people that had high deductible plans as this program is starting to get off the ground.
Yeah, good question. I can jump in. I'm Samantha. I'm the director of our implementation team here.
Right.
That is what our team, our medical assistant on site and our billing team is heavily involved in. We will always let the patient know if for any financial responsibility prior to getting a test done. So we're not going to limit them only because they have a deductible. We'll have that conversation with them and let them know this is your billing verification that we've received. This is what it would cost you if you were to get the pulse for pulse testing done. We have a nice ABM form that they will fill out to keep on file. So if they were to agree with it, we have them fill out that form and we can still get them tested. So a patient will never get tested unless we let them know if for any financial responsibility. So even if you don't have that that beautiful list that our billing team does, if you have a patient that's a walk-in patient for the day, you've identified that they could receive the pulse or pulse testing, we can run what's called a stat verification and be able to get their financials within like 3 to 5 minutes from our billing team to understand if they have any financial responsibility. So it is on our team to let them know what responsibility they have, and then it's for your front desk to be able to collect whatever that may be. Does that answer that question for you?
Yeah, it does. Because, when we first sat down with you guys to look at this test, we were a little concerned on the price tag for people at high deductible plans.
Absolutely.
And that's not exactly how it was presented, but we can talk offline a little bit more on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So next, you get the results. They're scanned into your document review. The patient comes in for a follow-up. They want to go over it. It's like a 15 or 20 page, maybe not that much, maybe like 13 to 15 pages report. It's very dense, very verbose, very colorful. It's great, but you can get lost in it, let alone patients getting lost in it. So this is the first page, and this is usually what I hone in on. The cardiac risk score, I think, is the highest, is your best data, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't looked at everything, but this one, when it's positive, has like 92% sensitivity, 75% specificity, I think, for structural heart disease. So when this one is elevated or even at a moderate risk, I'm sending the patient for an echo if we haven't gotten one yet. And I'm explaining that to them. We're looking for structural changes. Sleep apnea risk score, obviously, if this one is moderate and they have a stop bang that's positive, or, they fit the picture for an OSA type issue, I'm going to send them to Al Khalil, for example, for sleep study. Microvascular status, this is what I tell them, this is the carrot of the test, right? This is looking at all those tiny vessels that we otherwise weren't able to look at. And I use this more of a motivational tool than anything. I think interpretation guideline that we've gotten says, this is indication for more aggressive lipid management, diabetes management, blood pressure management. Of course, you can do all that, but this is how I tell them, hey, you have something brewing, right? We're not waiting for you to have a heart attack. We're not waiting for you to have a stroke. We're not going to wait for you to develop diabetes, start to get tingling in your hands and feet. The storm's brewing, and we got to kind of, tame it. So that's kind of how I've used that tool. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but maybe Dr. Antonopoulos can speak on that later. Macrovascular, same thing. If their ABIs are positive, we can send them for Dopplers. And then the bottom three are more related to that. The plate testing, the pseudomotor testing, you can use those to extrapolate out to like organic issues like TSH or B12. So there's a lot of downstream testing that you can use based on this. And this is the meat and potatoes of what I talk about with them. And then I love this picture, if I can find it. I may not be able to. One moment. I show them this picture too. I say, these spots over here, right, stages 4 and 5, even part of 3, this is where we've focused on medicine for the most part. We tell you to diet and exercise. We tell you to lose weight. We tell you to be healthy, stop smoking. But we wait till your blood pressure's higher. We wait till you have diabetes to treat it. This test is looking over here, right? It's finding those early changes, and we can turn the ship around before you ever get here. Because I like having nice, easy physicals, right? I like having quick, healthy patients, healthy physicals. That's what I tell them. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how I've approached it. Again, my approach to patients, everyone who circles a yes is not always going to get screened. And there are some people who don't get screened who I think qualify, and we'll go through it again, and I'll put them through. And as useful as that price tag is, right, understanding what the cost or out-of-pocket responsibility is, even if the test costs $300 and I think they would benefit from it, it's not going to dissuade me from recommending the test, because if I can light a fire under their ass, pardon my language, or get them to change their lifestyles or stop smoking or whatever it is, and they, don't progress to, CAD or diabetes or heart failure, the tens of thousands of dollars they're going to spend staying in a hospital, far outweighs the $300 they spend on this test when they're 40 or 50. So, I don't know. Can you guys still hear me? Oh, there we go. Yeah. Anyways, that's my tiny little spiel. And again, I'm very open to criticism if there's anything I'm doing wrong or anything different you would change. Dr. Antonopoulos, let us know.
Dr. Antonopoulos, before you jump in, I just did want to clarify something for Dr. Theodore Tangos. That verification sheet that the providers are receiving, it's just pulling the whole schedule. So if Dr. Phil Tangos is seeing 10 patients coming in for the day tomorrow, we're going to verify all 10 patients that come in for his day tomorrow. So the Pulse for Pulse team isn't picking and choosing any patients for you. That's for you guys to be able to determine, identify, and order on your own terms. We're just pulling your schedule, running that verification for you, and presenting it, printing it for you every morning.
That's correct.
I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. That's actually very helpful.
Awesome.
I have not gotten those sheets. Is it only at Washington this is happening?
So it's going to start happening at Washington, Shelby, and Sterling starting this week.
Okay. And when will
Okay.
Tilch be online? Or Romeo Plank?
I didn't hear that question. I'm sorry.
When will the other offices be online for that service?
So we're working with Janessa, Jenna, and the office manager over there to start getting in the door there.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Hi, everybody. I'm George Antonopoulos. I'm a cardiologist. And Dr. Tangalos, excellent presentation. Couldn't have done it better myself. I think
I doubt that.
I think you captured the essence of the test, and you captured the essence of what we're trying to accomplish with these patients. As a cardiologist, I come in later, oftentimes, to the game. You guys have that responsibility for the first 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, sometimes more. And the way that I view this test is if you put the patients in 3 general age pods, sort of the 20, 30-ish, the 45 to 55, 60, and then kind of the patients that are older than that in the 70s and 80s. And if you utilize the test both for its direct impact, the direct answers that it gives you, but also as a report card to how well that patient is doing and how well you're doing for that patient. And if you look at it from an age, and again, these are general classifications. Obviously, disease processes will vary based on age, but also will vary based on the individual. But the younger folks, you have a very long runway ahead of you and for that patient. And as Dr. Tungalo said, the point of it is to catch them in their 20s so that they're not in my office in their 50s, after their heart attack, after their stroke, after their event. And then the folks that are in their 50s is we already have some assumption of disease depending on their comorbidities. So we already know there's something there. Question is, how bad is it and how aggressive do we need to be? And are we doing a good enough job by checking the blood pressure, checking the cholesterol, checking their hemoglobin A1C, or is there more to it? And the answer to that question is yes, there is, and this test provides that. And then as we sort of progress later on, we got the 70, 80-year-olds. We start to get into autonomic dysfunction being a very significant part of that test. And albeit it's the macrovascular is very important, the microvascular is very important, the autonomic part also becomes very important because we have a reproducible and numerically significant parameter to look at, or parameters to look at, to see how well we're doing with those patients. The patient comes in, says, well, I was lightheaded and dizzy, and our response is, I checked the carotids, they looked okay. You must be dehydrated. You're 79 years old. And sometimes they are, or we assume that they have autonomic dysfunction. Well, now we have the capacity to look at and quantify that autonomic dysfunction and compare it from time to time and see if we are on the right path or we're missing something. So yes, they have autonomic dysfunction, but it doesn't look to be that bad. What am I missing in their significant lightheadedness, dizziness, and symptoms? So I think this test provides, especially in the primary care setting, it provides an incredibly interesting way to approach a patient from a vascular and from small vessel, big vessel, and autonomic function and dysfunction standpoint. As was mentioned earlier, again, in my practice, 97, 98% of the patients are going to qualify, 99% are going to qualify. In the primary care setting, that may be a little bit lower. But I think the benefit for each age group and each list of comorbidities gives benefit. The test gives benefit to those being evaluated. And I do use it as a report card. It's nicely colored. It is dense. If you can't fall asleep at night, it's some good reading. But the front page really, and from my experience over the years in utilizing this test, it allows I'm able to hold up that piece of paper with a color coding, and again, like a report card, just go down each one of those things and address it with the patients, and they respond to it. They see the red, they get a little concerned, they pay a little bit more attention. They see the green, you get to pat them on the back, they're doing pretty well. And so it gives a visual aid that allows sort of the psychosocial aspect of that interaction to be utilized. And again, we know these patients very well. We have good rapport, and we've established years of trust with them. And so now we're giving them kind of a visual aid as to how well they're doing from their their cardiovascular disease process. I think the test, again, in the minutia of it, depending on how deep you want to get, from a cardiovascular standpoint, especially, you got estimates of systemic vascular resistance, you get estimates of left ventricular ejection fraction, you get cardiac output, you get stroke volume. It gives a lot of information if you want it. You can look at the report card in the front, and address things broadly. You can look at the report card in the front and go and find the different pieces that lead to that report card, or you can answer your own questions. You know, I wonder what that patient's ejection fraction is. You know, I'm hearing some crackles, and I wonder if it's cardiac or non-cardiac. And so it is quite powerful, and it is 15 minutes. It's not invasive, and the patients, you know, no real complaints, and a lot of interest in both the testing and the resulting from the patients.
Thank you, Dr. Antonopoulos. Does anyone have any specific questions for Dr. Antonopoulos while we have him on the call? I know the main thing is really understanding, how do I order this test? How do I interpret the results? So if there's any specific questions that we can get nailed out. Now, I know a lot of you have gotten a brief introduction, have received some demo testing, and then the next step, we really want to be able to schedule one-on-one calls with yourself and one of our providers to be able to really dive deep into those results so you truly understand them and have a good comfort level on ordering more. So if that is the case, if you guys can get some of your patients ordered, or we can do some more demo testing on you, we can go ahead and set up those calls. You can reach out directly to me, or Shane Scott's been very helpful with getting those calls scheduled as well. But that will be the next step here as well. We've been doing these group calls, but those one-on-ones, I want everyone to know we do offer those as well for some additional clinical education. So if there's any open questions, direct questions, here's the time to ask them now.
So I actually have a question. On the third page, there is a functional age that's given. How is that derived? Because I think that's a cool thing patients want to hear. Like, hey, you're 60, but your heart and your vessels think you're 50, right? Oh, wow, I'm doing a great job. How do you get to that number?
So the formula that they utilize takes into consideration a lot of the parameters that the test generates. I do agree. It's a cool thing to do, and it does capture the attention of the patient. Although it works both ways. You know, when they're 10 years, they're not as happy. I think the validation of these. So again, there's a range of expected for different age groups, and within the parameters of the equation, it gives points to certain things, and then it spits out a number. I like to use it, but I also put it into the context of that the age range. You know, the reality is that we're not, 54 isn't 54 for everybody, and 37 is not 37 for everyone. And depending on their underlying clinical diagnoses, there are 40-year-olds that have AFib or have rhythm disturbances or have significant endothelial dysfunction, that it's going to grade them a lot higher. It's going to push them up a lot higher on the equation. But I think with this, it's a good number to have, but I try not to focus entirely on it because there are a lot of different parameters that go into it, within the calculus of it.
Very good. Thank you.
So other than Dr. Philip Tangelos, who else has used the test? Has anybody had the opportunity?
So my partner here, Dr. Sanchez in Washington, I'm not sure if he's on the call or not tonight. He's done a small handful of them as well. And then I've seen some trickling in from the Sterling Heights location. I'm not sure. I think Dr. Rod's ordered a handful. Dr. Kutsonis has ordered a handful. Those are what I've seen, at least so far.
And then just so everyone on this, sorry, Dr. Antonopoulos, on this call knows, we do have a full-time medical assistant that's at the Sterling Heights location and at the Washington location. At all the other locations, like right now at Shelby, we are able to order this test through the EHR, and we can get it scheduled just at either of those locations. So two full-time medical assistants at Washington and Sterling, but at those satellite locations, Shelby and all the other ones, we're working to continue to educate all the providers that are out at all the satellite, but we can get them scheduled. So I just want to make sure if anyone has any questions on how to do that, how to do the ordering. I know it's been sent out, but how to order in the EHR and how to get your patients scheduled within either of those locations, please feel free to ask that as well. Okay.
I think it might be a good idea to kind of walk through it for a lot of the APPs who haven't ordered one yet, where it falls in the EMR's fill, or anybody else that might want to bring that up, because that's probably an important part of it, because we're busy with so many other tasks of the day. You don't want that to be a holdup.
Yeah, so it's been a very, very simple process here at Washington so far. If I am ordering it and the patient is being tested the same day, provided they're not there for an AWV, I believe they can always be tested same day. I'm bringing them over to the room, or I'm going and letting the medical assistant know, hey, they're in room 5. They grab them, then they check them out. There's one drop down under the pulse for pulse shortlist. I'm not looking at it, but if you open that up, there's 2 verbiages, and then there is billing codes. So the first verbiage goes when you order it. You drop that under whatever the diagnosis is that's associated. So if it's hypertension or lipidemia or whatever, diabetes, you drop that one. And then if I'm scheduling them for another day, I'm just writing P4P in my referrals, and the front desk knows to get them scheduled for pulse.
Nirali, do we have that in the slides?
We do not. I can forward the email out to everyone right now, though. The one with the EMR verbiage, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
In terms of when they are tested, it is a separate encounter, even if it's on the same day. And the pulse for pulse medical assistant is supposed to build that encounter and drop everything applicable and send it over to the physician. So you really should just get that as a chart for review, or a chart sent to you, and you sign it off as a nurse visit.
Yeah.
If go ahead.
Well, for my situation where I'm not at Washington and only at the other office one day a week, most of mine will be scheduled at a later date. Are you just writing it on the encounter, Phil? What are you doing?
P4P in the referrals, where you would put, Sucre, Humudi, Al-Khalil, whatever. That's what I'm doing. And my front desk knows to schedule them.
Jenna, are we able to? Go ahead.
Nirali, that's what's happening in other offices, just so I know. Because I have a large patient base that probably would qualify, and I've kind of set back and haven't ordered anything until this discussion.
I've done quite a few of them now, Ted,
Yep.
and that's all I do is I write pulse for pulse in that spot, and they seem to get scheduled, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you write pulse for pulse in the referrals, these instructions were sent out to the front desk. The front desk will schedule it.
Okay.
And then Ted, when you're in the EMR and you're on the patient's face sheet, you can go to that printer icon and scroll all the way towards the bottom, and it'll say pulse for pulse, and you can print that screening tool right there. So a lot of times, like the way I've been doing it is, if I'm in doing a physical on a guy, maybe he's in his 40s and he's got maybe a new onset hypertension, or maybe he's running like he's got impaired fasting glucose, right? Say 1C is in the 6s. I'm not treating him yet for diabetes. And it clicks in my head. Maybe this is a good test to just make him more aware of kind of where he's headed with all of this stuff. And then I'll print that, and I'll say, I'm going to step out of the room for a couple of minutes. I want you to answer these yes/no questions. And if he answers yes to one of them, which he's going to, then I sign it, and then I write pulse for pulse on the encounter. And I say, I'm going to do this new test on you. It's kind of new to me too. I tee it up where I don't let him think that I'm an expert on this thing, right? Because when he comes back, I am going to fumble with it a little bit until I get really good at doing them. And then I think hopefully everyone's got the cheat sheet that Samantha sent out to all of us. It's great for kind of going over the results. The only thing I'm disappointed with that I shared with Jenna today is I can't print it in color to give it to my patients, because we don't have colored printers in all the offices. So I can show it to them on the screen, and I give them the printout in black and white. So it's not as great looking for the patient. So Samantha, we are going to come up with something a little different. I know you guys are printing them in color when you do the test, and you scan them in color, and then they probably go to the shredder. So Nirali, we were going to talk about maybe instead of shredding them, maybe putting them right in the doc's mailbox. So I can start collecting them, and maybe I can grab them and give them to the patients in color after they're scanned. But it's real easy to get them done. I think the harder part for us clinicians at Silver Pine is how do we incorporate it into our practice? This is something new. A lot of us are old docs. This is not something that we're used to doing. It's just, how's it going to benefit the patient? How's it benefit what we're doing, as opposed to ordering a calcium score test or a CTA or something like, or an echo. I may have already done the echo on that guy, right? So this pulse for pulse test comes back and it's just cardiovascular risk. And I look back, well, I just did an echo on the guy 4 months ago. So what's the next step? You follow? That's where I'm getting a little locked up, Dr. Antonopoulos. So
I'll take that one. So I think the test itself has a lot of data, and I mentioned the EF for one. Do I 100% rely on the ejection fraction calculation as a cardiologist? No, I'm going to do the echo. My patients are going to get echoes. So this isn't necessarily meant to eliminate certain tests. It's meant to look deeper into stuff. So I think, as with any test, understanding what the test is, understanding what the benefits of the test, the strengths of the test, and the weaknesses of the test, and whether you brought up coronary calcium scoring. It has its merits. It's beneficial if used properly, but it has a lot of limitations. It's going to tell you how much calcium there is. It doesn't tell you how much plaque there is. Sometimes there's correlation with the calcium. Sometimes and plaque. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes they'll give you non-luminal calcification as part of that score. So if my question to the patient specifically that is, what's your angina coming from? Yeah, coronary calcium score is probably not the thing that I'm going to use. No different than the test. I'm using it as a screening test, especially in the primary care setting. I use it as a screening test to evaluate for microvascular disease, macrovascular disease, endothelial dysfunction as part of it, and autonomic dysfunction. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of information that I'm screening there. And then from there, I get to pick and choose how I use it. I think the patient that had an echo 3 months ago is, unless there's been a status change, I'm probably going to rely on the echo ejection fraction calculation a little bit more than I will on this calculation. Oh, their correlation is pretty high. But that's probably not why I'm testing that patient. I'm not looking to see if his ejection fraction went down. I'm looking to see what other vascular disease he has. And again, I'm a cardiologist, so it's a little different, but I think at the primary care setting, this is a test that really will find early onset disease, early years before, and it will allow, well, they'll put me out of business, but that's all right. Well, it will allow a lot of the later disease to be managed much, much earlier, much, much more aggressively by you guys. So, I see it as, I use it a lot, but I see it much more in the primary care setting, being much more useful in that setting, because you're going to catch the patients. And if you miss them, then, and whether that's 5 years, 10 years, yeah, then they'll end up in my lab, or they'll end up in my office. But we can prevent a lot of that by being more aggressive earlier. We do pretty well with cardiac risk factors. We do very well with hemoglobin A1Cs. We do very well with hypertension. We do very well with cholesterol. I'm old enough to remember, the West of Scotland study that came out that was, LDL below 190. That was the target. And then over the last 35 years, we've gone 190, 160, 130, 100, 70, 50. Oops, too low, back to 70. And the same thing we did with hemoglobin A1Cs. The same thing we've done with blood pressures. So these are all ranges. And yes, the lower we go, the better we are. But we're not testing for cardiovascular disease with these surrogate markers, this test allows us to do direct testing of the microvasculature, direct testing of the macrovasculature. And that's pretty powerful in an outpatient setting in 15 minutes, non-invasive, and at the primary care level. So I think it puts a lot of power back into the clinician at the primary care level for little time and a little effort on their part. But it does getting used to, with any test, with any ordering structure. It took me a while to get my speech down and how I introduce the test and how I describe it. At the beginning, it was a 7-minute conversation. Now it's a 2-minute conversation. I've refined it, and that's the first patients. When you repeat it the next year, it's, oh, we're doing the pulse for pulse test, or if we repeat it 6 months, or if I made changes based on it and I want to follow it. And so the patients also get trained that this is part of their long-term cardiovascular and management.
Doctor, how long have you been doing it? How many years have you been doing pulse for pulse?
I've been involved with for about 2 years now in my office. Prior to that,
Sure.
I was being a little resistant that it didn't belong in a cardiology practice, that it belonged in the primary care practice, and then give me a call. I'll take care of it from there. And as we started to do that, as we had our referring physicians do pulse for pulse in the outpatient setting, we started to get more involved in actually doing the testing, because we recognized that not all the primary care physicians were doing it. And so although 10-20% of my patient population came in with a pulse for pulse, or came in from a referral primary that did pulse for pulse, the other 80-90% did not. And so while it was being rolled out a little bit more broadly, we figured we'd be leaders in this and test the patients. And now it's sort of reversing back. The primaries are getting these reports and going, what is this? And it's piquing their interest, and they're utilizing it more. And they're starting to incorporate it in their office and in their practice. And then for a lot of those people, we sort of peel off. So we let them do it. And
Sure.
if we do make changes, I'll repeat the test. But we work pretty well with our primary care docs. And if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. And the patient knows it's been done, and we don't need to repeat it. Now, also on that, from a logistics standpoint, they give me my list. It'll say tested. And whether it's my office or somebody else's office. So that work has already been done. And so I don't have to look back and think and even ask. It says it right there. It's tested or it's not tested. If I want to do it, I'm going to do it. And we'll go.
Well, your database, if a patient comes in from a primary care office and have the test with them, your pulse per pulse person can actually pull it up from a different office. Is it all centralized within the pulse for pulse network?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they have access to it to get the data. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think one of the, and this has been mostly at the primary care level, because there's a lot of information. What is how much do I have to know, and how much liability is there? I missed this, that, or the other. And as I said, it's 300 bits of information to go through. It's a lot. I joke with my patients, and I tell them, I get 27 parameters in the front. I like the old sheet that gave those 25, 27. As I look at those, there's another 273 to go. I said, I look at some of those, but because these are additive parameters, if you identify, and that's what the front sheet's supposed to do, if you identify the end product disease, then you can spend as much or as little time digging into the minutia, depending on your interests, your knowledge base, and your time frame. So it's not as if, I missed that one little tidbit, and now it's going to become a big issue. The front page gives you that answer. It tells you what's red, it tells you what's yellow, and it tells you what's green. And then you can go digging. Or, in the beginning, it was that they would come in with their paper. My primary did this. These are the results. What are we going to do about it? And like I said, we have a good relationship with our primaries. we're happy to take it over and do, run the appropriate tests. Other primaries want to do them in-house or order them on their own and deal with the results. So either way works. I don't think your local cardiologist is going to mind getting that referral for cardiovascular disease, either in the micro or the macrovascular.
Thank you, Dr. Antonopoulos. Jenna, I know we are on a schedule. You guys have a big agenda ahead of you, so I don't want to take up too much of the time. But are there any last minute things anyone had before we wrap up with Pulse for Pulse?
I have one. Sam, can you just clarify if a clinician has questions on a result prior to reviewing them with the patient? Is there someone that they can contact, and how do they do so? And the time frame that would take for them to do that prior to reviewing the results with the patient?
Yeah, absolutely. You could reach out to me directly as the implementation director, as we're still in that phase. Eventually, you guys will get assigned an account manager, but right now, as we're in the implementation phase, it'll be me. So you can share my contact with everyone. They can email me, call me, and I can get a call scheduled typically within a week or so. We have to kind of look at, usually Mondays are the best days for our providers to be able to do one-on-one calls, but we're able to work with that. So typically within a week or so. So we would be able to review that with them, and we may have to push back their review call if we can't get it in, but we'll try our best to get it in as soon as possible. Did that answer that question for you, Janessa?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Anything else for us? Good.
Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Yes,
guys
thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you, Dr. Antonopoulos, and thank you, Dr. Tangelos, for kind of leading the way with everything. We do appreciate everything. So again, or if you get some tests or you want to do some one-on-ones, please reach out. If you have any operational EHR questions to Janessa, Jenna, or myself, I would love to be able to help. So you have the support, you have the clinical team support, so don't hesitate. We don't want that to be the holdup.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Guys, enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. Good
You
night.
too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone else have any questions about Pulse for Pulse? For any of us? Okay. If not, I'm going to pull the slides back up. For our meeting, we do have a pretty extensive